Now we're going to talk about your new program that you got coming out, which is Be Here Man, which is interesting because your farm was Be Here Farm, and you told me you're still actually growing things for Be Here Farm, even though you guys got burnt out.
Yeah. Well, the entire property burned in 2020, and also the farm survived that fire.
That's great.
Yeah, which is actually, I mean,
Beautiful.
a testament to the farming practice, actually, because a fire did cross over the entire farm,
Mm-hmm.
and there's mulch everywhere, because around the crops and,
Mm-hmm.
and around the trees, there's mulch everywhere in the pathways. And so the fire crawled across the farm and burned all the irrigation lines. It really, truly burned the entire farm. A lot of the fruit trees and things also burned. And then the farm just kept growing, the parts that didn't just get totally scorched. So without irrigation, without farm hands, without any attention, because we were focusing on other sort of rehabilitation of the land.
Right.
The whole property got burned, so it wasn't just the garden. So we kind of went hands off in the garden for a period of months.
Yeah.
A few months later, you walk into the farm and there's whole heads of cauliflower and whole beds of kale and flowers and berries and
Wow.
everything just blooming from the living soil, which is obviously the intention of biodynamics. So it was cool to see that the soil did, in fact, stay alive, hold its moisture, and continue to produce almost all the crops that had been planted before the fire survived.
That means you just cannot kill Rudolf Steiner. He's invincible.
Yeah, the spirit was strong.
So, you went through a lot. What I'd like to talk about, because we're really talking about integration for men, could you tell me about your own process of dealing with the challenges of manhood, which surely would include your loss of the Be Here farm in the fire in September 2020. So maybe you could talk about just some of the stuff you've had to deal with in your own process of individuating into manhood, and that will help us lay the foundation for really talking more in depth about later on about what your new program, Be Here Man, is going to be, which is very exciting. As you'll go through this with us, you'll hear some of the people that are going to be part of this program, because Jared's put up a real line of men for sure. And for the women listening, don't think this isn't for you, because this is your chance to understand men. And you can't really love somebody if you don't understand them. You can try, but empathy and compassion and understanding goes a long way in a relationship. So I always get worried when I do programs about men, because it seems like maybe I'm excluding the women, but that's never my intention. I love listening to programs by women, for women, so I can understand women, because they're a complicated creature.
We happen to be offering a men's group, but as you said, it's through Be Here, which is our brand. And there's absolutely, in fact, most of our customers are women, because the thing that we're most known for at this point is selling skincare products, which the target audience is commonly women. So I'm a man, obviously.
Looks like it.
Yeah. And so I've personally been attracted to this work and gotten a lot of benefit from it, which is why I'm excited to share and create a group to dive into it with me. But what comes to me when you ask me about integrating as a man is the fact that, in specific, related to the greatest trauma in our life, which was the fires. And for me, the farm survived, which is beautiful, but what did not survive was what you would have thought was like the entirety of my dream and life purpose, which is we were developing a hotel on that property.
Right.
So that was a 10-year long project, dealing with the county and the neighbors and dozens of employees and just thousands of hours of single-minded dedication to making this happen. And I was I was working with you at that time, and you had sort of like, I didn't know what I didn't know, but you had sort of let me know that it was kind of like graduating out of architecture school and designing a skyscraper on day one. Like, it was a steep learning curve I had signed up for to have my family be my partners on a project, have my wife be my partner, my father be my partner, live on the property with where the employees would be, manage 300 acres, develop all this. So that was what I thought my dream was, or that's what, if anyone was looking at my life, they would have thought my dream was to successfully develop and open that hotel. So when the fire came, making that project no longer possible to pursue, anybody watching would have assumed that I had lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly looked like that. And it didn't feel like that, which began like a 6-month sort of process of trying to unpack why I wasn't just ready to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the only answer for me, and I think it's how I integrate everything in my life, is oriented around your teaching on the dream line.
Mm-hmm.
So my dream was not to develop the world's #1 hotel, which kind of became the marching orders on the ground. That was the project we were developing, was to develop the best absolute hotel we could develop. But the dream was actually to live in connection with nature and to create our livelihood around sharing and inspiring people to reconnect with nature as a means for their self-transformation.
Right.
Which is basically my process as a result of reading How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy.
Oh, cool.
So I had not heard, people like you will have me on a podcast to, let's say, talk about biodynamic farming or regenerative principles, or I professionally am involved in these things. And so people think I might know what I'm talking about. But the truth is that I didn't ever hear about the word organic until I read How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I'd never even heard of it.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah. And it's a really slippery slope.
Mm.
It basically created a monster in me.
Well, it's a healthy monster.
Yeah, no, a good kind of monster.
He's sitting here in front of me.
So I would say that the concept of having a dream that I was more in love with than what I was afraid of,
Mm-hmm.
which is your teaching.
You're afraid of the teachings?
No, I'm saying that's like my sort of paraphrasing of what I learned from you, was that my dream had to be bigger than what I was most afraid of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that is, I feel lucky to have established and named my dream and to have been pursuing it at the time of this crisis.
Right, because then you have an anchor. You know, the thing about the dream that a lot of people don't understand is that consciousness takes a lot of energy. Steiner's very clear about that. And most people don't want to be conscious, nor do they want to get involved in the spiritual life, because Steiner says it's crazy making. You have to confront your shadows, your programming. So once you're conscious of what it takes to really create freedom in your life, then you've always got one eye open for where you're limiting yourself or where you're bullshitting yourself. So that constant monitoring of your own internal ego, that's the judging superego that Freud talks about. Oh, do this, don't do that. Your mom's voice, your dad's voice, whoever's, voice accumulates in there is it's a lot of work. But the point that I'm driving at is that most people don't really want to be conscious. So they like to stay unconscious so that they don't really have to think about things, and they just kind of get caught in the ego's habits of thinking that it can control things, or whatever the ego follies get up to. But the point is that most people are so rooted in behaviors, even behaviors that are not really happy making for them or not wholesome for them. For example, staying in relationships they're not happy in, doing jobs they hate, going to work every day, but they convince themselves they got to do it for money. Drinking alcohol and thinking pot's bad for you when really it's a million times better for you than alcohol on every level. Not wanting to do the work to manage their finances. So, so many people just spend themselves into credit card debt like crazy, and then their life is very stressful because of that. So the point is that these types of unconscious behaviors and patternings and programmings that come from school, from parents, from culture, from media, they are actually like inertia. The mass. When you go to lift a weight, you've got to overcome the inertia of the mass. That's the hardest part of any lift, is getting it moving. But the dream, if it's an effective dream, always creates levity. And so what I found as a therapist is that if a person's dream, if they don't have a dream, they don't have something to help them, to inspire them to overcome the inertia of their habitual life, the unconscious life, the repetitive things that they do that they think is them, right? And so that's why I always quote Jerry Wesh, who says, if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis, because you've got a direction. You can filter. You can ask yourself at any given moment, is this sidetracking relationship or this energy and time-consuming relationship with person, place, or thing adding or subtracting to my dream? And so when you have a sense of dream orientation, you actually have a built-in compass, and that helps you decide which direction to go or not to go. And it also helps keep you moving toward the horizon of your own choosing, right? So when you lose everything like you did, but you know that you have a dream, you didn't lose the dream.
That's right.
You lost objects and things,
Yeah.
right? And there's a big difference in that.
Became a clear separation between them.
Yeah.
Immediately. And you just described my experience with this process to a T. That's exactly how I felt. The dream was my North Star, and immediately was obviously still alive.
Right.
And had not burnt down. Thanks.
Well, yeah, it's hard to burn a dream down. It really is.
Well, so the feeling that I had that sort of tripped me up and got me into, like I said, like 6 months of trying to unpack this feeling, was an immediate feeling, driving off the mountain on fire and feeling like joy and relief, actually, a sense of relief.
Well, you were under a hell of a lot of pressure for a lot of years there. I mean, I was coaching you for I don't know how long, but you and I were regularly working on how do you balance all this to-do items, endless to-do items and staff challenges and technical challenges with wells and, designs of gyms and everything that goes with it. I mean, it's a full-blown, full-time, hardcore process. And like you said, when you're living on the land, working with your wife and your father, there's really no easy escape from the constant pull of things that that you got to get done, right?
Yeah. And it was actually, it's all been a blessing, truly, in its own disguises. But, working with my father, working with my wife has actually been, they've been my greatest supports.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an overwhelming level of support from them to achieve what does feel like my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm actually a little emotional at it right now. But in real time, the idea of having a dream big enough that you don't need a crisis is what happened to me, because immediately so this dream was all contained to that property. We were developing a hotel. It was a 300-acre property. My entire universe was reduced to 300 acres, which sounds like a lot. Obviously it is, but I mean, compared to the world,
yeah,
I was really just focused on that space for 10 years. When it burnt down, the dream, the dream expanded.
Yeah.
So the dream was all of a sudden applicable to consulting for other people on similar topics. The dream was applicable to hosting the type of programming we would have offered at that hotel.
Right.
Like nature connection, holistic health, regenerative principles, amazing food, hospitality, offering that anywhere. We host live events around the world now. We have some coming up in Italy, in Idaho. So I never would have done any of the things that I've done the last 2 years had the property not burned down.
Right.
I also moved to Texas, and we have an incredible community there. So one of the things that we're bringing to the men's group is absolutely another principle that I learned through you, which is I, we, all.
Right.
And so when I was living on the mountain, I was a hermit,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing a lot of things at the I level that really need to get done at the community level.
Mm-hmm.
Like starting a biodynamic farm is a really cool exercise, but it's also done in this way at this scale while managing 300 acres is extremely expensive and difficult.
Yeah.
And so it only would have really worked if there was then a hotel that was bringing in a lot of money, and the garden was a part of that. But
Right.
obviously that premise burned down. And so it really made me realize that community, the we level, is more appropriate for certain types of activities.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just too heavy of a burden to lift.